All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today with Follow the Camino. Super excited to have you all tuning in. My name is Catherine. I'll go through this again later, but just while people are kind of still joining for the moment, really happy to have you with us. It's really nice, at least for me, to be able to talk about the Camino a bit amidst all that's kind of happening in the world. This is just very fun to take some time out today and to just get to have some fun and talk about a bit of hopefully trip inspiration for you and just kind of provide something to look forward to when we can travel again. So I hope this will be useful for you. While you're here, definitely, like, there's the chat function. Feel free to introduce yourself, let us know where you're joining in from. Yes, we will be sending you a video of this webinar when it's all over, so you'll have our presentation and kind of my commentary as well. So feel free to ask any questions that you may have. I'm not that, I don't know how talented I am at kind of answering questions while we go along, but definitely put your questions in the chat box. And then when we get to the end, I'll be going through and answering all of them. Oh, that's great. We've got someone from Texas joining us today. Oh, here, I'm going to keep admitting people into the room. So again, really happy that you all are here. It's, I know, not kind of where we all thought we would be at this particular time, but I know I'm joining you today from the floor of my living room. So it's just very different, and I'm glad that we can take this time together to chat about the Camino. So I'm just going to kind of continue to give a couple more minutes while we let everyone join. Let's see here. Oh, we've got someone from South Africa. I'm so sorry, it's cold and dark there. Oh, another American from the States, from Arizona. Oh, from Holland. Okay, this is just wonderful. So again, just really appreciative that people are tuning in to talk about the Camino today. You'll know that you can probably hear from the States myself. I'm from Rhode Island, but I'll go through all of this as we begin the presentation. Great. Okay, so I think we're just about at time there. So I am going to get started. So again, feel free to use that chat box, pop your questions in there. I'll be going through all of them at the end and doing a big question and answer session. So as they come up, this, as I said, for me, this is really fun to get to talk about the Camino in a kind of getting to do it way rather than what's currently happening. So I'm excited. So any and all questions are good. Put them in the chat box there. Okay, perfect. Great, we're just admitting some more people here now. Thanks so much for bearing with me as we get started. Okay. Great. Okay. Oh, we've got someone from Massachusetts. Awesome. Rhode Islander myself, so East Coast. Great. Okay. Perfect. Okay. We are officially going to get started. So as I said, questions in the chat box, and we will get started. Okay. So again, today's webinar is on how to choose the Camino route for you. So I know it can be a bit overwhelming because there are so many different Camino routes and it's hard to know about each of them. So hopefully this presentation today will kind of just give a bit more insight for you on what may be a good fit for you, where to kind of begin if this is your first Camino. If it's not your first Camino, maybe kind of allow you to explore some other options for when you can go out again. Yeah, okay. All right, so welcome everybody. As I said, my name is Catherine. I'm originally from Rhode Island in the US, but I've been living in Dublin for almost 4 years now, coming up on 4 years. And I've been with Follow the Camino as a Camino consultant for coming up on 3 years, 2 full years. And it's just been a wonderful experience. I love it. I'm super passionate about walking holidays in general and the Camino. So it's just very much a labor of love for me. So my first Camino, as you'll see here, was on the Portuguese Way from Tui to Santiago. I walked the last 100 kilometers, and that's when I was hooked and was like, this is it. All my vacations or my holidays going forward are going to be walking holidays. And most recently, I came back from walking Lucca to Siena on the Via Francigena in Tuscany, and was hoping to go out this year to kind of pick up where we left off and keep going from Siena. But as you know, that wasn't in the cards for this year. But as soon as we're able to again, that's where I'm headed. And generally, kind of why I love the Camino is because it just, we're all kind of sitting maybe at desks all day. It just allows you to kind of get up, stretch your legs, get away from all your screens, be outside. I tend to walk most often with my husband, and so it's just nice to get some quality time with him. That's kind of just us. There aren't distractions. It's just the best. And I'm also really motivated by like a big dinner and a glass of wine at the end of a walking day. So that's why I really like it too. So let's see here. Okay, so just kind of quickly what we'll run through today is just a little bit, if you don't know us already, who we are at Follow the Camino, what we do, and then I'll go into the different ways that you can experience the Camino and how to choose the right route for you. So who we are a Irish company. We're based in Dublin. We're part of One Foot Abroad Limited. One Foot Abroad would be our sister company, which handles walking holidays throughout Europe and kind of beyond. But Follow the Camino focuses on the Camino and pilgrimages in general. We were established in 2006, so we have been in business for quite some time now, weathered many a storm. So we will be here again when this is kind of all over and we're able to travel again and when travel can kind of come back. So that's always good. And we are, as I said, based in Dublin, and we are a multilingual team. I'm the only American on the team at the moment, but we have Spanish speakers, French speakers. One of my colleagues is Lithuanian, Irish on the team. So it's a really great kind of experience to be, and it's just very fun multilingual office. And between us, we have about 10,000 kilometers of walking and cycling experience under our belts. Each of us would be very passionate about kind of the work that we do, and we try to go out as often as we can to walk and kind of experience the routes so we can give you all the best advice firsthand as well. Perfect. I'm just checking on our waiting room here, just making sure we've got everyone in that's trying to join us. Thanks so much for bearing with me. Perfect. And yes, so we also have a 97% customer satisfaction rating. We really pride ourselves on our ability to kind of help you and provide the best support that we can for your experience. So we're very proud of that rating there. And as we've been in business for so long, we've got an extensive network of hotels and service providers, and have been able to really curate our list of accommodations for you. So that's always great as well. So as I mentioned briefly, our sister company is One Foot Abroad. So if once you kind of mastered the Camino and are looking to do more walking around the world, or just looking to kind of diversify your walking portfolio, One Foot Abroad is where you can go for many other options, from the Via Francigena that I've walked, the Loire Valley in France, Provence. In the UK, we have Hadrian's Wall and the Coast to Coast route. So there's just so many options out there for walking. So basically, just a quick kind of run through of what our services are for you. We will kind of virtually be there with you every step of the way, no pun intended, from the beginning to the very end of your Camino experience. So right from the start, we'll connect you with one of our agents, one of our Camino consultants like myself, who will help you in determining what is going to be the best route for you, kind of really tailor it to your preferences. And from there, we will then send it off to our reservations team, who are very skilled and pre-booking your accommodation, arranging your luggage transfer, and then before you go, we'll send you everything you'll need in a holiday pack, so that you've got your walking notes, you have your pilgrim passport if you're on a route that needs one, everything in advance. And then while you are walking, you'll have access to our 24/7 phone support number. So for anything big or small, any concern, you can call us. You've got someone just a phone call away to help you. And we also have a brand new Follow the Camino app as well, so that you can see your itinerary right in the app, your hotel name. You can view the GPX track of the route, see where you are in real time on the route, where your accommodation is. So we just tried to make it as a seamless experience as possible for you during this whole thing. So to have the best trip possible. Okay, perfect. Okay, forgive me. I'm not as tech savvy as I would like to be, so thanks again for bearing with me during my webinar. So the different ways to experience the Camino. So the main two ways are walking and cycling. So most people would be walking the Camino, the majority. Only about 6% right now are cycling the Camino. And kind of the biggest difference that I like to note there would just be that walking is just a slower experience, slightly more social experience, um, just allows you to kind of take each day and experience kind of the residential areas that you're walking through, things like that, chat to people while you're walking, meet new people. But on the other hand, if you are an experienced cyclist, that can be really, really fun because you have just so much more freedom to kind of take detours, maybe get lost, find your way back, things like that. But it would be highly recommendable that you are an experienced cyclist. Just because it's you want to be comfortable, and like after many, many days of cycling, that you're comfortable on the seat of the bike, that you know how to, for example, fix a punctured tire, things like that. There can be nothing worse than kind of getting into a long, long day and realizing your tire is punctured. You don't know how to do that. So it just kind of helps you have a more seamless experience if you're already an experienced cyclist. And because it's not quite as social as walking, so there's less opportunity to kind of chat with people. So if that's already kind of what you're used to, that's fantastic. But if this is maybe just you going off on your own and you want to meet other pilgrims, walking would be the most sociable way. And then if you are reaching Santiago at the end of your journey, it's important to remember that if you're walking and want to get, or I'm sorry, it's important to remember that if you want to get a certificate, your Compostela certificate, that you complete at least 100 kilometers if you're walking, or 200 kilometers if you are cycling. And so that would mean that you're getting 2 stamps a day in your pilgrim passport, something that we would be sending to you if you're walking or cycling with us. And then when you reach Santiago, you bring that to the pilgrim's office and they will give you your certificate. So it's very exciting. You get to bring back this lovely souvenir, kind of just saying that you've done this amazing feat, and it's in Latin and it's handwritten and it's just wonderful. So if that's of interest, I'd highly recommend reaching Santiago at least once for that experience. So just a little bit about the Camino today. There are 9 major routes that you'll see here that all lead into Santiago. The main kind of most well-known route would be the French Way, this kind of orangey one here that stretches across northern Spain from east to west. And historically, that would be the most well-known route, just because, or I'm sorry, and most frequently walked route, just because throughout history, the rest of kind of Europe would have been funneled through the Pyrenees at that kind of Saint Jean Pied de Port Napoleon Pass, just there, and then through the rest of Spain into Santiago. So just because it was walked so frequently throughout time, that's kind of the one that people have associated with when they hear the word Camino. They're usually thinking of the French Way, but there are many, many other routes with the 9 major you see there that lead into Santiago that are all really great options depending on your needs, and we'll kind of run through each of those today to determine which is going to be the best one for you. Just some other quick stats there. You'll see, as I said, that about 6% of people are cycling. The majority of people are walking, with most people walking the Camino Francés, and then followed by the Portuguese Way would be the second most popular. And the best time of year in general for the Camino is between mid-April to the end of October. That's when you're going to see most accommodations open. You're going to have the best weather. It'll be relatively dry and comfortable walking temperatures. Excuse me. Outside of these months, it is possible to walk the Camino, but it's going to be, I would say, essentially to bring a rain jacket. It will be a bit rainier, and you'll have less accommodations open at that time. So it is doable, but if you're looking for just kind of the smoothest experience, mid-April to the end of October is when you're going to see kind of just the most open to you. So the main kind of topic of today's webinar is how to choose the Camino route for you. And the best way to do that really is by asking yourself kind of a few questions, because you want to get to know who you are as a walker or as a cyclist, and that's going to help you have the best experience possible. So what we've done is narrowed down a few questions to kind of help you figure out what's going to be best. So it does help to start with a bit of introspection and to see what you think. So for the first question that you want to ask yourself is, do you want to reach Santiago? So as I mentioned beforehand, if reaching Santiago is a priority, you'll be able to get your Compostela certificate, things like that. So for a lot of pilgrims, it can be really fun for a first-time experience to reach the city, get your Compostela certificate, and have that kind of just lovely, very emotional experience of reaching the square, seeing the cathedral, seeing all the other pilgrims who may have come from months of walking many miles. So Oh, and sorry, apologies. I can see here I've got some hands raised, which is very exciting. Yes, we've got some questions here. Is the webinar going to be available afterwards? Yes, it will. So you'll have all of this information for you afterwards and all the questions as well. Perfect. I'm so excited that I'm getting more adept at using Zoom. So thank you. So So if reaching Santiago is a priority, that's fantastic. That will really help you narrow down which route is going to be a good fit for you. If at the moment, if you've reached Santiago before, or if it's not of interest, you're kind of just looking to do the walking and have that experience, fantastic. What we've done at Follow the Camino is we have divided each route into kind of week-long sections, just about maybe 4 to 5 walking days with beginning and ending at kind of major cities if possible, so it's really easy to kind of get there to start and then get out when you finish. So that will kind of help you narrow it down if Santiago isn't necessary at the moment, where you kind of want to begin and end for a different section. So the second question to ask yourself would be, how much time do you have? So if you're walking self-guided, what we can do is customize the route for you for however much time you have, whether that is a week, whether that's 3 weeks, whether that's 3 months. So that's really kind of a benefit that we can work with you based on your plans to build the right trip for you. But generally speaking, I would say that if you have at least a week, that's kind of an ideal time for the Camino, just because it allows you to get in the groove of walking and you kind of feel that rhythm. And then rather than kind of walking 2 days and then maybe stopping or things like that, if you're looking for that kind of real Camino experience, at least a week is so great. Then going up to 2 weeks, awesome as well. And then if you wanted to say walk a full route, it would take you about a month, or you can go for longer into Santiago. So however much time you have, there is a route for you. The next question would also be a very important question to ask yourself is, what is your fitness level? So a typical Camino walking day is 12 to 15 miles, or about 20 to 25 kilometers. So that's going to be about 4 to 6 hours of walking. Just checking this here. Perfect. So between 4 to 6 hours of walking on average. It's possible. So if that sounds like the right distance for you, fantastic. That's going to kind of allow you to stop and finish your start and finish your walking days in maybe say the bigger towns where there's going to be a little bit more in the evenings, a little bit few more options for accommodations. But if that's too long, that's perfectly okay as well. The more popular, kind of more populated routes will have options to shorten that distance for you. Typically, as you get closer to Santiago, it's much easier to walk shorter days, maybe that kind of 9 to 10 kilometers, or about 6 miles-ish per day. And then if that's already a comfortable distance for you and you're saying that's easy, I could do that any day, then that's great. You can then kind of add challenging elevation if you want to tackle that. And there are kind of options to extend days. So chat to us. We're happy to work with you to build the right distances for you each day. And just kind of a general tip is that the more populated, more frequently walked routes will have more options for shorter days, kind of offer more services and amenities for pilgrims compared to the more remote, more rural routes, which will have longer distances because there's just kind of less towns, less accommodations, less services. And typically those, because they are less frequently walked, usually involve some kind of greater elevation and a bit more of a challenge. So that's kind of one way to look at it. And then question number 4 to ask yourself, this is my kind of favorite question and the one I think is not maybe the most important, but very much up there, is what is your walking style? So are you very like looking for a very buzzy, very social experience? Do you want to talk to a lot of people while you're walking? Or are you someone who wants to just kind of go inward while you're walking, have more time for your own thoughts, a bit more solitude, really kind of reconnect with nature, with yourself? These are all really, really important things to know. And it's really helpful. I'll kind of talk about this throughout the presentation, but to just get out there and go for a walk and see what your preferences are, because there's no way to know until you try it. There's nothing worse than like kind of like myself, who would be more of a solitary walker. Even when I'm walking with my husband, the two of us will kind of have long stretches where we're just kind of in our own thoughts and not talking. But there's nothing worse than being one of those people and bringing your friend along, and they're really excited and they're super chatty, and they're trying to talk to you all the time, and you're not wanting to do that, and they're like, why are they talking to me? So it's just very helpful to know. So you can then kind of identify who your best travel partners are, all those things. A lot of things kind of come from this question. So as I've mentioned kind of already, the more populated, more frequently walked routes, they're going to be your more social experience. More rural, more remote routes, they're going to be your more solitary experience. And then a great option as well is we do have guided tours that walk throughout the year, that are about a week long, and they're really perfect if you're looking for that social experience with a little bit more structure as well, and are kind of looking to join a group of people to have dinner with in the evening. Maybe you're not looking to try to kind of organically create that. That can sometimes be intimidating or very exciting depending on who you are. So the guided tours are really great because you just have a group. People usually end up really great friends by the end of the week. So that's very fun. So now that you've kind of gone through and asked yourself these questions, how do you then apply the answers to the various Camino routes? So what I'll do is kind of now walk through basically just some examples of routes that answer each of these questions. And you can kind of see what works best for you. So as I've said, if you do want to reach Santiago, and if you do want to get your Compostela certificate, you're going to want to walk at least 100 kilometers into the city. So I've arranged them here for you from easier to harder. So starting with kind of as the Camino Francés, the French way would be the most well-known of all the Camino routes. That last section from Sarria to Santiago would be like the very top. Most people know that last section into the city. It's where you're going to see the most people and have the most social experience. It's also really, really approachable, very accessible walking in terms of elevation. And then similarly, you have the Camino Portuguese from Chile, which would be the second most popular. And you get a little bit more of a balance between maybe stretches where it's just you and then you meet other people along the way. And then from there, you have the Coastal Way and the Portuguese Way as well. And then from there, it kind of goes outward in terms of getting quieter and a little bit more challenging in terms of elevation, all the way out to, I would say, the Camino Inglés from Ferrol into Santiago, which would have the most kind of difficult, still very doable, but more elevation and the quietest, and just kind of require a more independent, more self-reliant pilgrim to kind of know to have your lunches with you, carry enough water, things like that, just because there's a little bit less resources during each walking day. Okay, and so yes, continuing on the last 100 kilometers, for each of those routes, you're going to need approximately 1 week to complete them, usually about 5 to 6 walking days if you're doing that kind of average 20 to 25 kilometers or 12 to 15 miles per day. But if you do either want to walk shorter days or have more time, you can start farther back. Or the French way and the Portuguese way, we have itineraries ourselves that stretch this route out, that 100 kilometers, to between 9 and 11 days total for the trip. So there's definitely options we can work with you on. And the really handy thing about walking one of the last 100 kilometer routes is that you can typically fly in and out of Santiago Airport. You can get a round trip ticket. Just makes it very easy in terms of flights. And then once you reach the airport, it's usually about an hour and a half drive, or you can take the bus or the train out to the starting point, and then you just walk back in. So that's just very handy. So if you didn't want to reach Santiago, if that's not a priority for you at the moment, or you've reached it already, I'll run through a couple different options in terms of just other routes where to start from. So for a lot of pilgrims, they'll want to start, say, at the very beginning of a route, walk a week, pick up where they left off the next year, and then keep walking in towards Santiago year on year. So if you did want to start at the beginning of the French Way is a beautiful route and happens to be about only 3 walking days if you finish in the city of Pamplona, which makes it easier for kind of getting out again afterwards. um, so it's a challenging and beautiful section. It is on the very first day from Saint-Jean, you're going to be crossing the Pyrenees into Spain. So that's going to be the hardest day, one of the hardest days of all Camino routes, but very, very rewarding. You have these beautiful views, and it's just kind of splendid to get to cross the mountains and cross countries, and then finish in the lovely city of Pamplona, Hemingway's favorite city. So that's a really great option. And then coming from Pamplona onwards, if you walked to Logroño or on to Burgos, these are really beautiful stretches as well because you're walking through La Rioja wine region. So your walking days are going to be through vineyards and through lovely valleys. The walking itself is very approachable. Once you get into the kind of Burgos area, you'll be walking on the La Meseta Plateau. So it's just very kind of, not to say easy, but the terrain's just very approachable for you. And then, for example, if you've already reached Santiago, the Camino Finisterre is another great route to walk because there is so much symbolism and it's just lovely experience again to reach Finisterre. It's a quieter route, and so you'd start in Santiago and walk out to the coast, to where the Romans believed which was the end of the world. And so for a lot of pilgrims, this is where they would kind of do that last stretch and kind of leave something behind at Finisterre and kind of leave maybe the struggle or the worry they've been carrying with them on their Camino, leave it there, and you get to kind of go back to your life with that burden shed. So there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of just kind of emotion around Finisterre, as well as it being a very beautiful place to see. And then so that's kind of the routes I've just been covering there. If you have about, say, a long weekend to about a week of walking, but if you had much more than that and wanted to do a full route, the most popular route, as I've said, is the French Way. So that stretches across the entirety of northern Spain. If you were walking that kind of 20 to 25 kilometers, 12 to 15 miles, 4 to 6 hours of walking each day. This would take you about 34 walking days if you were walking straight through without any break. I would typically say to allow a few rest days because you're going to want to just take a break and not have to get up and keep going morning after morning. And so the best places to do that are kind of in the major cities, Logroño, Burgos, León, places like that, while you're walking. And so myself or one of our other Camino consultants at Follow Camino can chat with you about other little places to stop and stay, and we can kind of design that full route experience for you. So it's really tailored and personal to you and to what your experience you're looking for. But that's kind of generally how much time you'd want to allow. And then, so if, say, that kind of 12 to 15 mile, 20 to 25 kilometers, if that sounds like your ideal walking day and want to add more of a challenge on top of that, there are some really, really great routes to walk. For example, the Camino del Norte. That one begins typically in San Sebastian. And the way that we kind of structure our Camino del Norte is that it runs to Oviedo and then goes down along the Camino Primitivo into Santiago. But this very start of it from San Sebastian is gorgeous Basque country. You are kind of right along the coast there, so you get to walk along these absolutely beautiful kind of hilltop bluffs that overlook the sea. There is a great deal of elevation change along this particular stretch, so definitely want to prep with hill walking and hill training before you go, but you won't be disappointed with the views. It's a quieter route, so you can kind of just be in nature and with yourself. And then there's lots of history in this area as well. And particularly once you kind of get into Basque Country, cider is kind of the most popular drink. It's just very fun. They like kind of pour it from way up top and into the glass. So just lots of fun things about this region in general, and as well as it being more of a challenging route. And then the Camino Primitivo, as I've said, kind of leading in from the Camino del Norte. This would be the most challenging route, I would say, from Oviedo to Lugo, that particular stretch, and then on to Santiago is kind of more approachable. But from Oviedo to Lugo, mainly, you're going to just see a lot of hill climbing throughout the majority of each walking day. And it's very, very rural, very rugged countryside. So you want to just come very, very prepped with all the food and water that you need for the day, and know that you're going to be in it for the long haul. It's going to be 30 plus kilometers of just kind of rugged terrain. So if you're looking for that kind of extreme challenge, this is a great one. um, just very long days and impressive elevation gains, but absolutely beautiful. You see from the photo here, it's just lovely. So something to consider. And then getting to that kind of social or solitary question. So we've kind of been talking about it throughout this presentation so far, but the French way, or those most frequently walked routes, are going to be your most social, and the most solitary routes will be the more remote, more challenging routes. But there are kind of ones that are still approachable, like the Camino Finisterre, which would be a quieter route, but still quite approachable in terms of elevation and distance each day. So options for everyone. And then if you are a cyclist, kind of one of the best cycling routes that we would think would be the Portuguese Coastal Way. So this would stretch from Porto to Santiago, and is about 5 days of cycling between 50 and 60 kilometers per day. And it's really unique because it's just so diverse in the kind of region and the terrain you'll be cycling. So you start along the coastline, traveling north, and then you're literally hugging the Atlantic Ocean. Beaches will be right there. You're finishing in these wonderful little kind of seaside coastal towns. And then once you reach the city of Vigo, you'll turn inland towards Santiago, and then cycle through the Albariño wine region. So it's quieter kind of residential roads through little neighborhoods, forests, vineyards. Spectacular. So a really great one if you're cycling or if you're walking as well. But in the end, whichever route you choose, all roads do eventually lead to Santiago. So the most important thing to remember is that there is a Camino route for everyone out there. So the first thing to do is just determine kind of who you are as a walker, what it is you're looking to get out of your Camino, and what experience you're looking to have. And then from there, just kind of picking the best route that fits all of your needs, and then going out for training walks or cycling, training rides, and just having fun and enjoying the journey. And what I love about the Camino is that it really is more about kind of what's in each of your days, as opposed to reaching the end destination, because typically you're not there for very long and the bulk of your trip is getting there. So you want to have fun and make sure that you're on the right route for you. Yes, and so talking quickly about training, we've got a training plan that we can send you. The one you'll see in this photo here actually is a great one, but we've just updated it. And we've been talking with physiotherapists and having them help us design an even better training plan. So they were very excited to help us with that, and we're excited to get that to you. But the biggest thing really is just kind of walking as much as possible, trying to get out for longer walks throughout the week, and then long walks on the weekend. So kind of that between 4 to 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours maybe. And if you have the time as you get closer to your Camino trip, going for that consecutive kind of walking Saturday and Sunday and doing a long walk, that can really help kind of almost mentally prep you for going out on a long walk and knowing you're going to get up the next day and do it again. And then you get to know kind of your body, because many of us could maybe do like a full 30-kilometer day once and then not want to do it again the next day. So it just kind of helps you know what you're going to need out of an itinerary. Yeah, and then the other thing would also be to remember to hike in the boots you want to walk in on the Camino, because the best thing that you can do is wear those boots in. Just to prevent blisters. You want to know that they're going to be comfortable. So even for some of the routes, say the last 100 kilometers from Sarria to Santiago of the French way, you could do that in a sneaker or like a running shoe, a tennis shoe that you've worn in, because you know they're already going to be comfortable and the terrain is not crazy that you need some kind of hiking boot. So the biggest thing is that the shoe is comfortable and that you've worn it a lot and you can say, yes, the shoe is comfortable. Don't go out and buy something new that you haven't worn, because that's going to cause just a lot of pain and blisters down the road. And just a quick run through about kind of packing. So we've got a handy packing list that we can send you. If you are planning on carrying your own luggage, the biggest thing is to pack light. You don't want to end up carrying more than 10% of your body weight. So casual, comfortable, light layers. The good thing is that you're going to have access to laundry kind of every couple days while you're walking on most routes. Either your accommodation will have laundry facilities or laundry services, or there'll be a place in town where you can do laundry, or you'll see a lot of people do kind of walking or washing socks and things like that in the sink and then just hooking them up to their backpack and walking with them during the day to let them dry. So you don't need a lot of stuff if you're planning on carrying your own luggage. If you are getting luggage transfer, which is one of the services that we offer, we include one bag per person with each package at 20 kgs per bag, but you can add more on if you have more luggage or maybe planning this as kind of a larger trip. In that case, you can pack much more. So you can kind of allow for extra outfits and things like that. I know if you're like me, I never know kind of what I'm going to want to wear, and I'm just packing it all, which is not good. But with luggage transfer, I kind of have the flexibility to do that. And it just makes your walking day a little bit more enjoyable because you're just carrying a small day pack with your kind of snacks, your water, and your valuables. You don't have to worry about carrying your pajamas on you and everything. So that's helpful. But yeah, so kind of, I'm very excited if this is your first time kind of meeting us at Follow the Camino, and if you've traveled with us before, welcome back. But mainly our big thing, if you're choosing us, is that we are here for you. We really, really place a lot of importance on support and just that kind of personal service that we can offer you. So we really want to design the right trip for you, make sure it's customized to you, be here for all of your questions beforehand, and then be there for you while you're out walking. So we really kind of put you first at the forefront of all of this. So we'd be really excited to work with you on your Camino. This is just a little quick kind of slide about all the other things that we offer you, which will be in the presentation that we'll be emailing you with kind of this whole webinar. So you can take a look at this when you have time, if that's helpful for you. And then because all of you have joined our webinar today, thank you so much, you do get 5% off on your next Camino. So you've got 24 hours to use this code, Camino Webinar. All you have to do is just contact us and kind of start that Camino process and let us know that you're contacting us because you watched the webinar and quote that there. And then we'll apply 5% on your next Camino. And that's for this year, that's for 2021 as well. So we know it's kind of difficult to plan in advance at the moment. So that 5% off will be good for this year or next year. All you have to do is contact us within 24 hours and let us know that you're doing that because you joined the webinar and want to get started on planning. So thank you so much for joining us. It really is a pleasure to get to talk to you today. And so what I'll do now is just run through some information quickly about coronavirus, kind of the topic maybe on everyone's minds, and then answer some questions. So the Camino, as you probably know, is kind of on pause a bit at the moment as Spain is starting to slowly ease its lockdown. I know they're looking to have borders reopening for about the end of June right now. So things are starting to happen, and mainly our suppliers are working really, really hard to implement a lot of procedures and policies to make sure that hygiene and all of that is just as top-notch as it can be, so that your safety really is a priority and at the forefront of your experience, so that you can feel comfortable and relaxed while you're staying there. So you can kind of rest assured that there's a lot being done and a lot happening right now to make sure that it's safe for you to come back. So yes, we're looking to have things, or Spain is looking to have things open up by the end of June. And what's really important as well is that all of our future bookings are going to benefit from a no change fee policy, yes. So you've got that added extra flexibility. So if you book now, say even for this fall, if you know you want to get out there and then you aren't able to travel because of coronavirus, you can move your booking completely free of charge to the next year. And similarly, if you booked for 2021 and aren't able to travel then due to COVID-19, you can move your booking without any extra fee to when you can travel again. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you to get out to the Camino. I know our suppliers, accommodations we work with, and our luggage transfer, luggage handlers, they all really depend on the Camino season. So they're really excited to have everyone come back. So we're going to do everything we can to make that very easy for you. So thank you so much. At this point, what I will do is take any questions that you might have. I'm just going to open up the chat function here and see what questions we've had during the presentation. And feel free to keep putting questions in, and I will be able to answer them. So yes, I've got a question here from Sandy. Are passport points easy to find along the way? Yes, they're very easy. So pretty much any place that you stop will likely have a stamp for your Camino passport, your pilgrim passport. So accommodations, your hotels will have them. Restaurants that you're stopping at, cafes, churches, shops, they're all going to have stamps for you. And so you want to make sure that just on that kind of last 100-kilometer stretch that you're getting the 2 stamps per day. Prior to that, you don't really need to get 2. You can get just 1, that's fine. But during the last 100 kilometers, 2 stamps a day. And if you're booking with us as well, we will send you that pilgrim passport by mail before you go, so you don't have to worry about picking that up in advance. You'll have that there. Great, we've got someone else that walked the Portuguese Way who loved it. That's great to hear. It's my favorite route for that kind of section, and it's, yeah, so great. Yes, the whole webinar will be available to you afterwards, the whole recording, so you can watch it all and listen to my kind of ramblings as well. So this will be here for you. Yes, okay, we have someone that's looking to do the Camino Francés next year and wants to know what the advantages of booking now, if there are any discounts. So you will get a discount for having joined this webinar, 5%. And the big advantage, at least for next year, is that next year is a holy year. 2021 is a holy year because St. James's Day, July 25th, falls on a Sunday, which happens, I think it's every 7 or so years, which makes sense. So it's a holy year, and so a lot of people are going to be walking, particularly the French way. So booking now, what it does is allows us to pre-book your accommodation immediately. Once you've placed your deposit, we go ahead and start booking. So you get the kind of just the best choice of our first choice accommodations, or kind of the best access to our first choice accommodations, because as you get closer, particularly for such a popular year, they'll just start to fill up on months like May and September are the busiest months on the Camino. So if you're starting on a Friday and you're reaching Santiago on a weekend, those are going to be really, really busy dates, and a lot of our first choice places will just be completely full. So if you're booking now, you just have the benefit of the availability of those accommodations. So that's really important as well, particularly if you're looking for a certain accommodation, if you want to stay at the Paradors, things like that. That's just the benefit to that. And right now, is any accommodation on the Camino open? Not at the moment. They're starting to, I believe in Portugal, because Portugal wasn't hit quite as hard as Spain by COVID, that some hotels are starting to open kind of gradually and slowly, but there aren't kind of like a big string of hotels opening, allowing people to really walk in kind of a normal fashion at the moment. And we've got a question here from Sandy about, is it possible to get a certificate on the Camino Inglés? Yes, it is. So if you're walking the English way and you start in Ferrol, that is the 100-kilometer point into Santiago. So walking from Ferrol to Santiago qualifies you for your certificate. If you did start in a little bit closer to Santiago, so historically, the English way would be the way that English and Irish pilgrims would have come and towards, kind of sailed over and then reached Spain and walked into Santiago. So if you did start kind of at that historic point, what you could do, for example, is walk 25 kilometers in your own country, and the Pilgrim Office has more kind of information on the specifics of what qualifies and what doesn't. But if you are based in Ireland or in Dublin specifically, you can walk the Celtic Camino and do 30 kilometers here in the city, get your certificate, and then you bring that with you to the Pilgrim's Office, and you can get your full Compostela certificate, having only walked about 75 kilometers in Spain. That's a fun way if you are based in Ireland or thinking of visiting Ireland even, that you can kind of have this dual experience, very historic experience. So I'd highly recommend it. I've walked the Celtic Camino myself, and it is beautiful. You similarly kind of hug the coastline, and it's a really nice certificate that you get saying the Celtic Camino on it. I have it on my refrigerator, so I would recommend. It's great. Let's see. Okay, and yes, we've got a question here about how much time is recommended for the Camino del Norte. A really good question. So if you're thinking of walking, if the Camino del Norte, say, sounds like a route of interest to you, I would say that to kind of think about how much time you have. So if the Camino del Norte is of interest and you want to reach Santiago, you're going to need a lot of time because it will take you about a month as well to kind of start in San Sebastian and walk all the way into Santiago, potentially a bit longer because you're going to want to take a few rest days because it is quite challenging. But what you could do and what some people have done is walk, say, for a week between San Sebastian and Bilbao, or between Bilbao and Santander along the Camino del Norte. And then from there, you can kind of travel down and do 100 kilometers into the city, or just visit the city of Santiago itself, or just take about a week between those cities. So it's up to you, but I would say, again, about a week is kind of the best way to walk between the bigger cities, San Sebastian, Bilbao, Santander, Oviedo onwards. So if that helps answer your question. Great. And then, yes, okay, we've got a question about the coastal Camino, the Camino Portuguese coastal route. So that one, the Portuguese coastal Camino typically begins in Porto. That's where you're really starting along the coast and can walk all the way down. If you wanted to reach Santiago from Porto, that would take you about 2 weeks to walk. However, if you have less time, it is possible to begin. We would typically start people in this lovely little town just over the border from Portugal and Spain called Oia. And it's this just cute little coastal area. You can start there, and that's just over 100 kilometers from Santiago. So you get about 2.5 days of coastal walking before you reach the city, or sorry, before you turn inland and walk towards the city of Santiago. So that would be an option if you have about a week's time, starting from Oia and walking to the city, or if you have the full 2 weeks, you can walk the full coastal way from Porto. It's about 200 kilometers-ish, stretching that route there. Let's see here. Is there a Camino route starting from Lourdes to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port? I believe there is. My knowledge of France isn't quite as skilled as my Francophile colleague, who knows France much better than I. But I believe that there is, and you can check our website. And what I can do is send information on afterwards as well. That there should be a route that connects to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, but there is essentially the Le Puy Way, or the Via Podiensis, that runs through France, connecting into Saint-Jean and then connecting to the Camino Frances from there. Let's see. Oh yes, we've got a great question here from someone who's walked to Santiago on their own without a guide or a backpack or no advance reservations, and is asking what kind of accommodations that we use if you're walking with us. So that's a really great question. We have a variety of accommodations we work with. So depending on your budget, what's of interest to you, we can absolutely work with you. Our standard package would be hotels between 2 and 3 stars and guest houses. So it's kind of that simple but comfortable, usually family-run accommodation that you'll be getting with us. But we do have kind of a more budget package. When you're reaching larger cities, you can upgrade to 4 or 5-star accommodation. But the main thing is that we're booking it in advance so that you're not having to walk to the town and at the end of your walking day find that the hotel you were hoping to stay at or the hostel is full, and you have to go on to the next. Or in some of the smaller towns, if you're kind of way up on one of the routes in, say, in the Camino Frances, and you're trying to stop in a smaller town, the town is full, and so you have to head on to the next. So that would be the situation we're hoping to have you avoid. So while yes, it is certainly possible to walk without any advanced reservations, we're here to kind of just take that worry away for you and make it just as seamless and relaxed as possible. If you're like me, I know that I am a planner. That's why I'm in this job. And so I need to know where I'm staying, what's happening, where is my bag going, all of that in advance. So it works for someone like me just to have all that sorted ahead of time. Let's see. Yes, okay, we've got a question here as well about what happens if the lockdown is extended and you can't travel. So as I said, we're going to make it as easy as possible for you to still travel at a different time. We've been really, really lucky and really grateful for our current clients, who most of them have been able to postpone their trip as opposed to having had to cancel it outright. We've only had about 6% of our clients have to cancel outright. The majority of people are postponing, so we're going to make it really easy that you just kind of take the deposit you've placed and slide it over to new dates for when you can travel again. And if for some reason, worst case scenario, those dates are unavailable again due to coronavirus, we will continue to move them. So we'll make it as easy as we can for you. Yes, and we've got so Pamela is asking about our phone number for US clients. We do have a toll-free North American number for the US and Canada that you can reach us on. The email that we'll send out to you with this webinar presentation will have that phone number. While we are based in Ireland, we're here from about 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. So you can get us anytime then. We're always happy to chat. I know me, especially at the moment, we're very excited to take Camino questions that kind of aren't coronavirus related too much. It's just very fun to talk about a bit of your wanderlust and get to know what you're excited about. That's why we're here. So definitely give us a call. Let's see here. Oh, I'm so glad to know that someone thought this presentation was helpful. That's great. Let's see, and we've got a question about are there always small hotels with private rooms and bathrooms on most routes? Really great question. So yes, with our particularly standard package, as I've said, which is hotels between 2 and 3 stars, you'll always have a private room with a private bathroom. So that's always going to be yours. It kind of takes away that hassle of having to wake up at 4 a.m. with that early riser in the hostel who's setting off, and you're like, oh God, now I guess I have to get up too. So our standard package is always private room and private bathroom. Depending on if you have chosen a very rural, very remote route, it may be the case that one of the towns does not have that kind of private room, private bathroom option. So what we've done in that situation is we can arrange a transfer for you. So you'd still walk to that town, and then one of our drivers would come pick you up and take you back to either where you just came from or on to the next town to spend the night. And then the following morning, we'll take you back to where you left off walking that previous day. And then you just start from there as well. So if having that private room was definitely a priority, that's no trouble at all. We can handle that. In other cases, say if you are booking one of our more budget packages, it's still always a private room, but there's a chance that in smaller towns or smaller hotels, you may have a shared bathroom with say 1 or 2 other people. If that's the case, we try to let you know as much as we can in advance, but our standard package, always private room, private bathroom. Oh yes, and I can see here that my colleague Wanda has put in our contact information. It's in the chat if you do want to give us a call. Let's see here. Oh, and yes, Sandy got a question here about who supplies the pilgrim passports in the UK if you did the first 25 kilometers of your route there, as opposed to like, so for the Camino Inglés, rather than walking it in Spain. You just want to contact your local pilgrim's office, essentially. Like I know in Ireland, there's the Camino Society of Ireland. They'll have the passports for you. But even what I did, I set off on the Bray. So I led a training walk here in Dublin for the Bray Celtic Camino. And I just brought like a notebook and I had them stamp my notebook. And at the end, I brought it to the St. James's Gate Church and they saw all my stamps and they were like, cool, and gave me my certificate. So there's definitely a workaround if you aren't able to get the passport. But definitely I would look and see if kind of your area has a Camino Society, or even if you want to email us, we can definitely send you a pilgrim passport. If you're just kind of buying one, they're usually about €5 or so that we can mail to you. So definitely some options there. Yes, so Pamela's asking here about the Celtic Camino in Ireland. There are a couple different routes. The Camino Society of Ireland, their website lists each of them. But I would mainly at least have experience of the Bray to Dublin Celtic Camino walk. So you'd start all the way out in Bray along the coast and then walk up into the city, finishing at St. James's Gate and St. James's Church there. So it's beautiful. You're kind of walking through Killiney and Dalkey and it's lovely. So I'd highly recommend it. Oh yes, and Wanda's ahead of me again. She's great. She's got the link there for you for the Celtic Camino in Ireland. Fantastic. We've got a new product in Waterford as well. Yeah, so lots of options there. Okay, we've got a great question here from Barbara from Canada. So what can you tell us about the inland route of the Camino Portuguese and the biggest difference between that and the coastal route? Fantastic question. So what I like about both of these routes, and mainly about the Coastal Way at least, is that you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So if you are walking the Coastal Way and you are reaching Santiago, you're going to be able to experience the coast and get that inland experience because the routes do join and just outside the city of Vigo. So you get that kind of contrast and kind of that best of both with the Coastal Way. Starting with the coast, you're going to be walking primarily on boardwalks and promenades, literally hugging the ocean. And so um, uh, it's just going to be a very coastal experience. And then when you're finishing at the end of each walking day, you're going to finish in small kind of coastal, almost like resorty kind of towns, very touristy. So the evenings will be buzzy and more social and things like that for the start of the Coastal Way. And then once you join the inland route, it's just outside the city of Vigo in a town called Redondela, and the two routes just literally join up, and you start walking inland, headed towards the city of Santiago. So once you cross there, the route will shift a little bit in that you're walking mainly on woodland paths and through kind of a woodland experience, but also through small vineyards, and you're going to kind of weave through residential areas as well. So you really get a feel of the kind of local life and the pace of life and what you kind of are waving to a lot of people in their homes, working in their gardens. So it's that kind of fun experience. But I would say there is a little bit more road walking with the inland section, just because you are approaching a city and you're going to get that kind of more suburban experience. So just something to keep in mind, particularly if you're choosing shoes or things like that, that you're going to have a bit more kind of pavement or asphalt while you're walking. Let's see here. So I hope that answered your question, Barbara. um, okay. Got a question here from Bob about budget Camino Frances and do we book in albergues? And so yes, we do. The Camino Frances, for the entirety of the route, we can book you into hostels and albergues if you are looking for that that shared dormitory experience. So that's certainly something that we can do for you. And what's very cool about our trips that I like too is that you can really customize them. So if you kind of know you want to have a private room, say, for the majority of your trip, but don't want to miss out on that shared dormitory experience, we can kind of pepper your trip with stops in a dormitory so that you can get that experience, but still kind of have a private room. You can really, like, say, for example, if you want to be in dormitories while you're walking kind of for the majority of a week, and then you finish in a bigger city in private rooms to get a break and kind of just have a space to yourself while you take a rest day. Definitely something that we can do. So I wouldn't, or at least what I would do if if I were in your shoes, is kind of think about what that kind of ideal experience looks like for you, and know that we can work within it and kind of work to match it. So the world's your oyster, which is great. um, let's see. And is it feasible to do the Portuguese way solo and unguided? Absolutely. So while we do have guided tours, that they're really great because of the structure and kind of camaraderie that they provide. But for each of these routes, you don't need to have a guide. I've got more people in the room. That's great. You don't need to have a guide. Most of the routes are going to be very, very well marked and easy to follow. And we're additionally going to send you with GPX track and things like that, so that you're going to know where you are. And the guide, if you're on one of our guided tours, is really just there to kind of be the anchor for the group. And should you have questions or need support while you're walking, but absolutely walking self-guided is very, very doable. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, I've got someone that Casey's calling from Mexico. So I believe that in that case, you want to call our North American number, the 1-877, to toll-free number. To reach us from Mexico. We will definitely be a couple hours ahead of you in terms of time zones, but we are here till 6:30 Monday through Friday, which is about 1:30 for the East Coast and 10:30 in the morning for the West Coast, unfortunately. But if you're up early, you can give us a call, things like that. And we've got a question here from Don about whether we have a guided tour that includes wineries. Awesome question. We are in the process of adding something like this to our kind of repertoire at the moment. We had to kind of hit pause when coronavirus happened, but that is something that we're working towards, to have a Vino on the Camino tour. So while we wouldn't have that kind of already incorporated into one of our guided tours yet, that's definitely something that you can incorporate into a self-guided tour. So if you're walking, say, through La Rioja wine region from Pamplona to Logroño and into Burgos. There's wineries that you can visit. You can kind of take a day, a rest day to explore on your own. From Logroño specifically, you can get taxis to and from the city out to vineyards. And then in Galicia, there's the Albariño wine region, so definitely doable to incorporate that into a self-guided trip. And soon enough, you'll have a guided tour where we incorporate it with you as well. We've got a great question here about can I make some schedule changes on the fly? So if you're walking and want to spend an extra day in a town or a city, really good question. So since we are pre-booking your accommodation, there's there's more flexibility, if this makes sense. There's more flexibility in your walking day, but less flexibility in kind of that changes on the fly. So while we wouldn't be able to restructure your accommodation mid-trip because it would throw off kind of the domino effect of each of the accommodations, then we have to change those. And then by then, because it's so last minute, like a day out or something, the accommodation is most definitely going to change and our first choices would no longer be available. So while you're not able to change where you're sleeping that night on the fly, you do have much more flexibility in your walking day. So for example, if you say you're staying in a lovely little town and you're like, I love it here, I just want to spend a morning relaxing, and I don't want to get up and walk and leave just yet, you can absolutely do that, and you can just kind of hang out for the morning, and then you can even give us a call. We can help get a taxi out to you, and you could just kind of taxi then for what would have been your walking day onto the following hotel, or even kind of a halfway point and starting to walk from there. So there's more that you can kind of play with in that sense. Even if, for example, in a worst case scenario, if you were to kind of fall and hurt yourself, or hopefully not, I've had to do it when my husband and I, on our very first trip that we went on, our first Camino on the Portuguese Way, he hurt his foot. And so what we had to do the following day was kind of hobble around to different pharmacies and kind of use my high school Spanish to get him an ice pack and an ace bandage and all those things he needed. And we kind of lost that day of walking and just took a taxi then to our next hotel and just kind of called it part of the experience. And then the next day I went on walking and kind of sadly left him behind, and he got to hang out for the morning and take a taxi on to meet me at that hotel. So there's more that you can, as I've said, you can kind of do more in your walking day. Even if you were to kind of come across a town for lunch while you're walking and really like to stay, or it starts to rain, call us, we can get a taxi to you and kind of finish that walking day. So yes, if that helps answer your question, I hope. I've got a question here about what time of year would you recommend? So generally speaking, the Camino season is from mid-April to the end of October, but the most popular months are going to be from May to September. So what I would say is that they're most popular because they're going to have really good weather. So both May and September are relatively dry with very comfortable temperatures that aren't overly hot. But it does mean there'll be more people on the route. So if you're looking at a more popular, more frequently walked route, keep that in mind. And maybe if that's something you're looking to avoid, mid-April is still a fantastic time to go. June is still a fantastic time to walk. Those kind of bookend months. Even say August is only really 1 degree warmer than it would be in September. So if you're walking more popular routes, those bookend months mean a little bit less people, or if you're really into that very social experience, May, September are kind of the ideal weather, but more people months. And then if you're walking a more remote route, May, September have the best weather, generally speaking. Just to keep in mind. Let's see here. Yes, we've got a question here from Armando. Do you have different packing lists between people who want to do the luggage transfer or are carrying everything on their own? Absolutely. So I believe we send it on with this webinar, or at least it is on our website, or you can contact us and we can send it to you. We have a packing list for everything that you might want to pack if you're carrying your own luggage, and then kind of the additional things you might want to bring if you are getting luggage transfer. The other thing as well is we do have a really, really extensive blog and FAQ section with even more kind of detail and kind of, particularly in our blog, answering a lot of these questions about what to pack, what not to pack, what are some like little luxuries to bring on the Camino, that kind of thing. So definitely check out those resources. You can find them right in our website blog. But yes, we have 2 different packing lists that we can send that will be helpful for you. Great. Oh, yes, great. Wanda's awesome. She's on it. She sent us the link to the Vino on the Camino website. Fantastic. That's great. Oh, and another great question here from Casey Owens. So what would you suggest would be a good daily budget? I love this question just because it's kind of fun to talk about the different food on the Camino, one of my favorite subjects. But so since your accommodation is pre-booked, and your breakfast will be included with you each morning, you don't have too much to worry about in terms of carrying cash. So while you're walking, you'll want to make sure that you have some kind of small amount of money, some cash for lunch, because you're not going to want to use a card at these kind of little places you're stopping at, where you can get bocadillos, the sandwiches for maybe €5. You can get kind of the tortilla, the potato and egg kind of tart omelet thing. Um, so lunch is usually pretty inexpensive. I would budget around €5 to €10 for lunch around there. And then for in the evenings, most places will have a pilgrim menu or a menu del dia, which is typically between 12 and €15, and you get 3 courses. So usually a small appetizer, a choice of your kind of main dish, and then a small dessert. So all in all, you really only need about maybe 20 to €30 per day at the most. And in the evenings as well, you can you can use credit card at most places, depending on the route. If you're walking something very rural, I would just say to have cash, and you can kind of top up at ATMs along the way. But generally speaking, you can use card in the evening and carry a small bit of cash for the day while you're walking. If that kind of helps, Casey, in answering your question there, 20 to €30 would be a comfortable kind of amount to budget each day. Great. So that seems to be the end of the questions that I can see here in the chat box. If anyone has any more, feel free to pop them in. Truly, I love getting to talk about the Camino, so I am at your disposal if you've got any others. Yes, but yes, do check out our FAQ page. It's huge. One of my colleagues spent a lot of time compiling all of what we did as agents is we spent several months kind of compiling each of the questions that we get from you, from our clients, and putting that into a giant spreadsheet so that we kind of really know what people want to know when they contact us, and then spent time compiling that and making this big, beautiful FAQ for you so that you can access that even if you're not able to speak to one of us right away. So that's right on the top right-hand corner of our website. So definitely check out the FAQ. It is extensive and answers everything from what type of accommodation we use, what is a typical breakfast on the Camino, where to get lunch, what to do if you hurt yourself or who to call. All those things are in that FAQ. So check that out. And then we've got a really great team as well writing for our blog. So there's some really great resources there, particularly around coronavirus at the moment, how to kind of plan for a post-corona Camino, what to do, how to train, what that might look like. We've got more information on kind of what the hotels are doing, things like that. Let's see here. Yes, yeah, keep putting questions in the chat box. If there's anything else that you can think of, I'm happy to help. Yes, our blog and our FAQ, and then yeah, do contact us. All of our agents here are kind of like ready and waiting to talk to you. So we'd love to chat. All you have to do is just go on our website. You can fill out one of the little forms there of maybe what you're thinking about, your kind of general plans, and then we'll be in touch with you pretty quickly, and again, set up a time to speak by phone or by email. Even if you have no kind of set date in mind yet, you're kind of still at the very beginning of your process, reach out to us. We're happy to answer questions you might have and talk about your specific situation and your personal kind of plans. Yeah, so it seems like most of the questions have been answered at this point. Unless anyone has any last minute ones they want to throw in the box there. But again, it has been such a pleasure getting to talk to you. We've got a question from Anne, yay. Do you do luggage transfer only? We don't right now, so our packages would be as a package. So you do accommodation and luggage transfer, mainly because that's kind of we then know the accommodations, they know us, and we can safely deliver your luggage each day. So right now it's not separate. You couldn't do luggage transfer on its own, but you can just do accommodation if you don't want to do luggage transfer. That's very possible. You don't have to have it. And if you decide not to have luggage transfer and then during your Camino, you're like, help, I need luggage transfer, we can definitely do that for you on the fly. So definitely something we can help with. Yeah, mainly we're going to try to just keep it as easy as possible for you and just be your kind of safety net while you're out there. Yeah, but yeah, it really has been such a pleasure getting to chat with all of you today. This is my favorite topic, and so keep throwing questions at us and emailing us and contacting us. We're so happy to help. I really appreciate all of you taking time out of your day today to join me and to kind of hopefully get inspired for your trip. It's just really nice to see you all. So thank you so much. You can email us at info@followthecamino.com. You've got 24 hours then to just let us know that you joined our webinar using the code Camino Webinar, and you've got 5% then guaranteed for your future trip. So do definitely contact us. Yeah, a question from Casey. Yes. Is there medical services available on the Camino? Yes, there are. So yes and no, in the sense that if you're on a very rural or very remote route, you're never going to be too far, usually between no more than maybe 20 kilometers away from some kind of town. And then on bigger routes like the French Way, the Portuguese Way, you're pretty close to medical services. But the big thing would be that while we do have that 24/7 phone number, if you are in a real medical emergency, you're going to want to call the actual emergency number, like 112 in Spain. But yes, you're never going to be too isolated, particularly say on the French Way. You're never going to be that far from town in general. You'll always kind of be a little bit aware of where you are in relation to the rest of civilization. So you'll definitely be able to get help should you need it. And one of the most beautiful things about the Camino is that it is such a community environment. So no one ever really is alone on the Camino. Everyone looks out for each other. Pilgrims are so happy to help and so kind of buy into or just kind of are part of that mindset of that we're all pilgrims and we're all in this shared experience together. How can we help each other? And so you'll find that everyone's just so friendly and looking to help you. So definitely lots of resources for that should you encounter anything less than ideal during your experience. Yeah, but again, really appreciate you taking the time out today. I hope this was helpful for you. You'll be getting a copy of the presentation by email, and yeah, just very grateful for your time today. So I hope to hear from you again in the future by email or by phone call, and we'll be chatting with you again. Thanks so much. Stay tuned for our future webinars, and yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.